Everyone, I would like to call the board meeting to order. We'll begin with the territorial acknowledgement. Please stand if you are able for O Canada. Please be seated. Could I get approval of the agenda? Moved by trustee Woodcock, seconded by trustee Radlin. All in favor? And that's unanimous. Okay. We are going to move right to announcements celebrating board activities, and we have a special evening tonight, which is the past directors bursary awarding of the bursaries. And just grab my notes here. So I'll just tell you a little bit about the bursary before we go to presenting them to the students that are here tonight. And then anyone that's not here tonight, we will forward the bursary on to them. So the past directors bursary, formerly known as the Linda Thaby bursary, provides funding for students who are pursuing a trade through college or apprenticeship and who have not already been selected to receive an award at their graduation ceremony. The adjudication committee, comprised of Director Chanaka, myself, Vice Chair Radlin, and past Chair Piatowski, reviewed the 14 applications, and all 14 applicants, the committee found that everyone was worthy of receiving the bursary. So they have all been selected to receive the bursary tonight. The following criteria we're taking into consideration: the student's key characteristics, an example of how the student has demonstrated perseverance or has overcome obstacles or made a remarkable comeback during his or her high school career, a staff member's recommendation. So all 14 recipients met the criteria and will receive $100 in the bursary. The 14 students, and I'll read their names first, and then I'll invite you up to receive your bursary after that. They are all going into trades such as electrician, blacksmith, carpentry, welding, culinary, tech production, power line technician, hairstylist, construction, automotive tech, and electromechanical automation. So all great careers when you get there, and I wish you all the best when you do. So the recipients are Andrew Chumley, Elmira District Secondary School; Atlas Bruckman, Kitchener-Waterloo Collegiate Institute; Ava Carla, Waterloo Oxford; Brighton Holland, Cameron Heights; Dominic McDermott, Preston High Schools; Jeremy Tobola, Southwood; Kazim Jamal, Eastwood; London Boyd, Eastwood; Lucas Atu, Waterloo Oxford; Nathan Zaire, Waterloo Oxford; Rami Zenadine, Grand River; Scott Good, Elmira; Tyson Bowman, Elmira; and Zach Turner of Kitchener-Waterloo Collegiate. So congratulations first to all of the winners. And when I call your name, if you could come up, I'll ask Director Chanaka to join me. And if you don't mind, we'll have your picture taken as we congratulate you. So first is Atlas Brockman. And Ava. Brighton Holland. Dominic McDermott. London Boyd. Very good. Rami Zenson. And Zach Turner, automotive technician. So once again, congratulations to all the students that won the bursary, and we wish you all the best in your chosen careers. You're welcome to stay or you're welcome to head out at this point. Sorry, moving on to delegations. We have two delegations this evening. Both are in person, correct? Yes. Okay. So I will read the delegation procedures. In accordance with the board's bylaws, sorry, we're just waiting for one of the delegations to come in. Okay, I'm going to read the delegation procedures. In accordance with the board's bylaws, delegations have up to 10 minutes to address the board. Any exception to this rule will require a majority vote. All remarks are to be confined to the issue you are addressing, and discourteous language, reference to personalities, or statements contravening the Ontario Human Rights Code or Charter of Rights and Freedoms will not be tolerated. At the beginning of your presentation, the timer will be set for 10 minutes. When 9 minutes have passed, I will advise you that you have 1 minute remaining to bring your comments to a close. Following your presentation, trustees will have an opportunity to ask only questions of clarification relating to your remarks. If the item you are addressing is listed on the agenda, which it is for both of you, then trustees will discuss the matter at the appropriate time. Okay. Ms. Charlotte? Sorry. Okay, sorry, that was a mistake here.
Should I
Can
start?
you restart, please?
Oh, there we go. That sounds better.
Thank you.
Okay, start again.
Start again, please.
Good evening. I attended the May 12th board meeting where changes to the bylaws were presented. I wasn't surprised that Trustee Ramsey's proposal for the replacement of trustee vacancies was defeated 8-3. Because as we know, appointments maintain the status quo. The introduction to Section 15 states, the WRDSB is committed to strengthening connections through family and community engagement. One opportunity for engagement is through delegations. This is both noble and commendable. However, 15.2, 15.3, 15.3.1, 15.4, and 15.7 totally undermine this sentiment. I was particularly impressed by the 4 delegates from the last meeting who cleverly articulated the problems they foresaw with the implementation of the changes to Bylaw 15, which would deliver a blow to free speech and by extension, the democratic operation of the board. I will not repeat the well-expressed arguments as they were particularly cogent. I would also like to thank Trustee Watson for a clear and concise appraisal of the dangers of such a change to these bylaws. I am here to argue in defense of maintaining, not changing the delegation process using my personal experience. I was successful in appearing before the board on 3 separate occasions. My topics dealt with issues based on observations as an attendee of countless board meetings where I took the board on several occasions to task. My topics did not deal with curriculum issues or policies about sexualization of our children or books that are thought unsuitable for children. These topics are more easily dealt with as the trustees could easily use their lack of engagement shielded by the excuse they were just following the guidelines of the Ministry of Education. They were protected. And probably these topics were not under the rigorous scrutiny that mine was. My topics instead dealt with board attitudes and interactions with the delegates, and this was personal. So you can imagine how difficult it was to write an outline of my topic under the current rules, fearing if I said too much, I would be denied the right to speak. Because I was careful in how I crafted my presentation, there were several volleys back and forth requesting further information from me. This occurred on all 3 occasions, and I felt intimidated. Fear of denial motivated me to be vague as to the true nature of my presentation. Bylaw 15.3 demands that a complete copy of the presentation be submitted before the approval to speak is granted. So I pose these questions. Would I have been approved if I had been forced to reveal how disgusted I was by the disrespect shown by the directors eating and drinking during delegates' presentations? Would I have been approved if I were to reveal my anger as a taxpayer to have to assume massive legal debts created by a former chair by denying a teacher her human rights to speak against inappropriate books? My last submission for delegation was T for transition, and this was denied with an explanation that said my topic would be better delivered to a medical community. Once again, I had tried to craft my explanation in a non-threatening manner so that I could sail underneath the radar, but I failed. I feel more topics will be silenced if they are deemed inappropriate for a board meeting. If the current delegation process deters parents from coming forward, how will this new requirement encourage dialogue? If I felt pressure to tailor my delegation submission in order to be approved, why should I bother to submit my concerns under the new relegations? I feel that even confident parents will second guess appearing before the board, lest they be censored before they begin. This is extremely dangerous in that it places the power in the hands of the administration. Will criticism be tolerated? What is the board afraid of? That they are tightening the ability of parents to speak. Section 15.7 reduces the time of 8 speakers at 10-minute slots to 10 speakers at 5-minute slots. I checked, and there's never been 8 speakers at a meeting. This is just another means of reducing the ability of people to fully express their ideas. One trustee complained that too much time of the business meeting was taken up listening to the outcome of parents. Therefore, the reduction in time was justified. The presence of parents was considered an inconvenience, something that must be tolerated. Disdain was a good way of describing his attitude towards parents. But, hey, I have an idea. What if when the delegation is approved, you just simply print and send out the presentation to the trustees by email, thus eliminating the necessity for the delegates to even appear before the board? Just think of the time saved. There's been a deliberate plan to exclude and distance parents and participation in the operations of the WRDSB by replacing the personal words parents and guardians to the impersonal caregivers, by restricting seating to 30, by closing the breakout room, by locking the doors at 17. Parents are being treated like second-class citizens. Now we have changes to the delegation process where the gulf between the board and the parents and the community will grow even deeper. There are a number of disgruntled parents who would like to hear their voices heard, but lack the confidence to write a delegation, and the fear of public speaking prevents them. However, they may be expressing their dissatisfaction by removing their children from this board to the Catholic School Board because I've heard that enrollment is increasing. Where are these children coming from? Could they be coming from our board? We need to foster and cherish communication between the community and the WRGSB and not create the roadblocks that I've alluded to. The proposed changes to Section 15 mitigates against the transparency and openness to which you, the board, offer lip service. Communication between the board and the parents and the community is paramount if we wish to keep a healthy relationship. Parents must be made to feel welcome and valued rather than inconsequential and an annoyance. They are our greatest ally, and as I see it now, we are alienating a valuable asset. Finally, I pray, along with an army of parents, that this board will come to the realization of the great harm that our children and families are enduring under the false flag of security and safety. You alone are responsible for implementing these policies, and you alone will be held responsible. Thank you.
Trustees, are there any questions of clarification? None. Thank you. Mr. Alton?
Hi, trustees. Thank you for the time. I must say I'm quite tired, so I'll probably be keeping it short. But I thought it was important to come tonight because it was like 2 years ago that I came to this school board, to this meeting to talk about the importance of queer literature. And then in the following of that school board meeting, the clips of me from that meeting were then cut and pasted and repopulated through the internet. And I received 700 hate messages, which was a really great time. So I think it's clear that I'm here to support these measures to take some strategic direction in, I guess, essentially being strategic with the fact that we are dealing with a very well-documented hate movement towards queer people, that we are dealing with a very well-funded, I guess, neoliberal movement against public education. And so it's important then for institutions and for government institutions in particular to move forward strategically based off of that. I think it's important for us to really be strategic about what does it mean to have delegates? What does it mean to have public discourse in this context of these hate movements and these neoliberal pushes to defund education? And I think one thing I just wanted to flag today is that, you know, in the current delegation system, you as trustees, you don't know who I am, you don't know why I'm here, and you don't know what I'm going to say. And so then I can come here and I can claim, you know, I'm a caregiver, and you know, and you are discriminating against caregivers, but you have no actually understanding of what my family looks like. You have no understanding of whose interests I'm here to represent. And I think it's important that trustees are very clear-headed in that there are people who come not because they are invested in public education and in the interests of students in their school board, but because they're personally motivated. And there's lots of different reasons they might be personally motivated. And this is something that governments have been grappling with for a while, ever since, you know, government meetings were televised. You know, there has been a shift in how public and government have related. There's been a real big pressure push towards getting speaking points, towards the kind of media, playing around with media after the fact. And so it shifted the focus away from policy directions and towards public spectacle. And this is challenging because I do advocacy work. And so I want to be pushing governments. I want there to be space for us to push governments. But we have to do that in this context, acknowledging that there are very well-funded movements to defund public education, and that there are movements that want to criminalize racialized students, that want to eliminate queer students from seeing queer people, and that's something that is well documented. Some of the things, personal motivations that delegates may have that you, under the current system, have no understanding or no ability to sift through or navigate are like financially motivated. I mean, there are third-party groups, there are foundations, there are think tanks, especially in the neoliberal kind of defund public education world, that are in that will pay people to come to these processes and disrupt. And you have no way of screening, is this person a community member who's really invested in the school, or are they a paid are they a paid person coming for this special interest group? And this is because the current model really allows for these kind of media sound bites. And that's really beneficial to these movements and these big, foundations and these agencies. I'm thinking of like the Fraser Institute. They do stuff like this all the time. I remember when I was in public education, there were like literal kind of campaigns for each part of our institution to defund, to disrupt this process. There's also this interest, people may be fame motivated. You don't know this, but I have social media. I'm on the hunt for followers, you know, and I can use the media attention I get from this meeting to try and get more followers. I can try and get more subscribers for my podcast, more people to come to my YouTube channel. I might be looking to try and get a gig writing editorials for newspapers. I might have connections to the Record, to the Toronto Star, to the National Post, to Fox News, which I'm going to leverage then to try and elevate, you know, my own name, and maybe I'll turn that into a career. You know, maybe I'm trying to become a talking head, a commentator, an editorialist. And these are well-documented careers out there that people are making a living, coming to government institutions, getting the media around them, and then leveraging that for their own personal gain. There are even people who come in based off of the kind of attention they can get from a moment like this, go and do a speaking tour and travel from county to county across the province, trying to get, you know, get more attention, get more followers, and also increase their profile as a speaker on this kind of in this kind of world. There's a whole economy around neoliberal disruption of public education, public government institutions. People also could be very political motivated. I mean, you don't know this, but I might be running for school board and I want to try and get my profile. I want to get some nice sound bites, some nice clips of me looking like a very concerned caregiver parent, so that I can then run for school board in the future. Or maybe I'm trying to get a gig with the city or with the province. These are things that people do because there are people who are very wanting to try and get a career as a politician. And so these bylaws are very important. At least they're not gonna be able to stop it. You see how people play, how these systems navigate. They'll change their language, they'll adjust to try and fit in within the system. But at least these bylaws make it a lot harder, and they mitigate those kind of directions. Obviously, we've seen people be faith motivated. There are many religious institutions that are very invested in defunding public schools so that there can be funding of private religious institutions. And also many churches and many religious institutions are just lacking a sense of purpose. And, you know, in this world where there's a lot, I mean, I'm sure you feel it, the stress of the modern life, the fear, the anxiety of modern life, having this rip into, get all excited into kind of a campaign at a school board can give our community a sense of purpose. And I might be doing that at my congregation. So I hope you trust that I am here because I believe in public education, that I believe that this should be a space that is safe for people of all walks of life, all identities. But in the current system, there is no way of knowing that, and you have no checks and balances. And so then you are very much open to being exploited by people who are personally motivated. And lastly, I think it's something to think about is that you might, how do you protect the school board from each other? In the sense, we've seen how the House of Commons and Queen's Park, when they got televised, more and more MPs and MPPs became very focused on sound bites that they could then leverage in the community and the media afterwards, rather than the actual policy work. And I would hate for this institution to become one that is more about sound bites and people's personal careers than the important work of making a space for children to learn. So I don't have much more to say. I think these bylaws are good. I'm so exhausted that we've had to do this for the past 3 years. And I hope that we can take some steps to make it a little harder to disrupt this process and turn it into something for political gain, personal gain, or for the defunding of public education, which is, I think, a huge crime. So thank you.
Trustees, any questions of clarification? Seeing none, thank you. Moving on to, I neglected to ask if there were other announcements, so I'll just go back. Trustee Woodcock?
Yes, through you, Madam Chair. Thank you. It was a very active Take Your MPP to School Week, an initiative sponsored by or initiated by the Ontario Public School Boards Association. Trustee Radlin accompanied MPP Clancy to Lackner Woods with Superintendent Pam Coor and Principal Julie Jackson Sinclair. Trustee Patkowski was at Mary Johnson with MPP Fife and Superintendent Ron DeBoer and Principal Marcus Hoare. And I was at Janet Metcalf with MPP Mike Harris and accompanied by Superintendent Ron DeBoer and Principal Krista Moore. Oh, no, Beamish. Thank you. And they were all great visits, and we're glad that the MPPs had time during constituency week to visit some of our schools.
Thank you, Trustee Woodcock. Any others? Okay. Seeing none, moving on to the consent agenda. Can I have a motion to approve the consent agenda? Moved by Trustee Watson. Trustee Watson? I can't hear you.
Okay, so I wanted to ask a question about the violent incidences within the report of can you hold this
What-
while I look for
What
this?
folio is that?
I'm looking for that right now, but I had
Okay.
to have my finger on the
All right.
speaker.
Folio 37 and 39.
I'm not sure what's so funny.
Trustee Watson?
If we had an actual microphone that we didn't have to press a button when we were speaking, we could navigate our computers. So 37, when we look at
Just 1 second. So I have a question on folio 37?
37 and the next one, which is 39.
Okay, so just 1
40.
second. So folio 37 through 40 is what
Right.
you're asking for. Is
Right.
that correct?
Yeah.
Okay. Could I have a motion to approve the consent agenda with folios 37 and 40 removed? Moved by Trustee Paitowski, seconded by Trustee Radlin. All in favor? And opposed? Okay, abstained? Okay, and that motion is carried. Okay, Trustee Watson, folios, let's start with folio 37.
Yes,
Okay.
thank you. So when we look at these folios and under violent incidences, we can see that we're going up. And the violent incidents, the term violent incident is defined as the occurrence of any of the following occurrence of a combination of any of the following: possessing a weapon, including possessing a firearm, physical assault causing bodily harm requiring medical attention, sexual assault, robbery, using a weapon to cause or threaten bodily harm to another person, extortion, hate, or bias motivated occurrences. But we can see that they're going up. So March 2023, year to date 52, March 2024, year to date 97. The next report, April 2023, year to date 55, and April 2024, year to date 105. These are going up. And we're hearing a lot in the media about violent incidences within our school. These are going up. And I asked this question, it was either last month or a few months ago. And we keep talking about COVID. COVID's gone. COVID is gone. Okay. So what are we going to do to make sure that these violent incidences aren't going up? What is the plan? what are the strategies that we're going to do to bring down these violent incidents? It's in the newspapers are printing about it. So what are we doing as a school board to prevent these violent incidences, to curb these violent incidences? Because numbers don't lie. The numbers don't lie.
Okay. Associate Director Lemon?
Thank you. Through the chair to respond to the trustee question. From the last time I brought these reports, and I think you asked similar questions, we were able to dig a little bit more into the data. And I think part of the increase is also, it can be attributed to, we've done a very good job within Safe Schools to raise awareness specifically of the last category of occurrences, hate or bias motivated occurrences. And so there has been some awareness raising, and so our reporting has gone up as a result. However, in terms of the steps that we're taking, we are and continue to engage in some of the front end work around training active bystanders, which has encouraged students and the staff that support them to be involved with the pro-social strategies that will prevent these things, these conflicts from occurring and from escalating. And at our pilot sites, we have seen a decline. However, as the trustee, as was pointed out in the question, we within the Safe Schools Division are also very concerned about how it's increasing. We do feel that what we've learned through the training active bystanders work in particular is something that we can explore and broaden across the wider district.
Follow-up?
Yes, thank you. So my follow-up would be, do we actually, because it's just a number. We don't know, according to all of the different incidents it could be. We don't have the stats. We don't have that information. But you had mentioned some sort of plan at the school level. Now you mentioned the bystanders. So what else are we doing to curb these violent incidences, which are on the rise in our system?
Associate Director Miller? Oh, I'm sorry, Lemon.
Or Lemon.
Sorry.
I'm good with
Associate
either way.
Director Lemon?
Yeah, I was ready to respond. Through the chair to respond to the question, yes, training active bystanders is one part of it. I would also say our social emotional learning work that we're doing at a classroom level, building class communities and building up on that. In terms of understanding the data, the ability to disaggregate the data right now is presenting a challenge to us. So that's why I said we can only say that it contributes somewhat to the increase. I can't say conclusively that it's the sole contributor to the increase. We are very aware, as I said, of the trend that we're observing, and we are moving from the classroom level to the individual support level, but also to school-wide initiatives. And I would say those are mostly fitting in the frame of that social emotional learning that's done by educators on a daily basis. So finding a place for that and being more targeted in that, in those interventions, we're hoping, and we feel that that is a strategy that can work for us. But as I said, we are quite encouraged by the initial results we're seeing from the training active bystanders.
Okay, could I have a motion to approve folios 37 to 40? Moved by Trustee Woodcock, seconded by Trustee Esta. All in favor? And opposed? Abstained? Okay, and that motion is carried. Are there any declarations of pecuniary interest? Seeing none, we'll move on to folio 41, which is the OPSPA 2024-2025 Director and Voting Delegate. Annually, we have to confirm or appoint our director for OPSPA, as well as the voting and alternative voting delegate So that's what this is about, this evening. So there is a motion, oh, no, first we have to vote. Okay, let me go to my. I was just. Okay, so first we need to appoint scrutineers. So, we need to appoint 2 staff members to act as scrutineers for the election of the OPSPA director, delegate, and alternate voting delegate. Associate Director Scott Miller and Interim Associate Director Bill Lemon will be fulfilling this role. Thank you. We'll start with nominations for the OPSPA director. Nominations can be made verbally and no seconder is required for a nomination. A trustee cannot nominate more than 1 candidate. Once nominations have been closed, each candidate will be provided an opportunity to speak to their nomination for up to 2 minutes, should they accept it. Are there any nominations for the position of OPSPA director? Trustee Johnson?
Thank you. Through the chair, I nominate trustee Scott Piatkowski as director for OPSPA on our behalf as WRDSB.
Okay, thank you. Are there any others? Okay, do I have a mover and seconder to close nominations for the position of OPSPA director? Moved by trustee Woodcock, seconded by trustee Esta. Is there any discussion on this motion? Okay, for the vote. All in favor of closing nominations for the position of OPSPA director? Okay, and opposed? Abstained? And that motion's been carried and nominations are now closed. Trustee Piatkowski, do you accept the nomination?
Yes, I accept with thanks to my nominator.
Okay, thank you. Would you like to speak to your nomination at all?
Thank you, but I'll pass.
Okay. There are no other nominations, so trustee Piatkowski is acclaimed as OPSPA director. Congratulations. Okay, we'll then move on to nominations for voting delegate. Are there any nominations for the position of voting delegate? Trustee Piatkowski?
I would like to nominate trustee Meredith Rodland.
Okay. Are there any further nominations? Seeing none, do I have a mover and seconder to close nominations for the position of voting delegate? Moved by trustee Esta, seconded by trustee Johnson. Is there any discussion on this motion? Okay, we'll now vote on closing nominations for the position of voting delegate. All in favor? Okay, opposed? And the motion is carried. Nominations are closed. Trustee Radlin, do you accept the nomination?
I do.
Thank you. Trustee Radlin is acclaimed as OPSPA voting delegate. Oh, sorry, I forgot to ask if you wanted to speak to your nomination, but I think you're okay.
Thank you, no.
Okay. Now the last one, nominations for alternate voting delegate. Are there any nominations for the position of alternate voting delegate? Any nominations for alternate voting delegate? Seeing none? Okay. Could I have a motion to close nomination? Oh, sorry, trustee Woodcock?
I was a little slow on the draw. I'd like to nominate trustee Esta for the position of alternate director for
Alternate voting
delegate.
delegate? Okay. Any others? Okay. Can I have a mover and seconder to close nominations for the position of alternate voting delegate? Moved by trustee Johnson, seconded by trustee Meisner. Any discussion on this motion? Okay, for the vote, all in favor of closing nominations? Okay, opposed? And abstained? The motion has been carried. Nominations are closed. Trustee Esta, do you accept the nomination?
Yes.
Okay. Would you like to speak to it?
No.
Okay. Trustee Estajuela is acclaimed as alternate voting delegate. There's no ballots, so that's it. Okay. Okay, all included. Just check that off. Okay, great. So we are moving on. We already did all the motions, so we don't have to do the motion that's on folio 41. Okay. Just moving on. We are moving on to ad hoc bylaw review committee. So we're continuing the motion that was moved by trustee Radlin and seconded by trustee Meisner that the WRDSB approve the draft WRDSB bylaws as presented at the May 13th Committee of the Whole effective July 1st. And that the bylaw review committee be disbanded upon adoption of the adopted bylaws. So according to my notes, we left off at section 15.3. Trustee Watson?
I think it'd be appropriate to go into, committee of the whole for this. Because when we're finished, we should give the public an opportunity for sober second thought so that we can come back and look at this. It shouldn't be a slam dunk tonight.
Just a minute, trustee Watson. Okay. Okay, because, no notice was given to move into the committee of the whole, we need 2/3 to approve that motion according to our bylaws, section
We've never-
13.14.
Yeah, we've never had that before.
Or if there is notice given,
We've done
Then
that
we have-
before multiple times, moved
Just-
into a committee of the whole.
so it still requires a vote. And according to section 13.14, right, let's read this. Okay. Shall be, so within 24 hours before the meeting is to take place, special board and committee of the whole meeting shall be held at the call of the chair or at the written request of 5 trustees made to the chair. The meeting may be held at a date, time, and place established by the decision of the chair, blah, blah, blah. Okay, so we still require a vote in order to move into, in order to not follow bylaw 13.14, section 13.14. So it's been moved by trustee Watson. Is there a seconder? Trustee Ramsey? Okay. Trustee Woodcock?
What's the motion?
The motion is to move into a special committee of the whole. Okay. Would anyone like to discuss this?
Yes, I would. Thank you.
Okay.
So,
You're welcome.
because this is a board meeting and it's not another committee of the whole, it would just be a given. But now this is a board meeting, which means if we vote on all of this in its entirety, it means it's ratified. Usually what happens at a committee of the whole, we get a sober second thought at the end of the month to bring it forward at the end of the board meeting. And then delegations can come forward. They also get a second chance to come forward and talk about, maybe some of the things that they've learned or maybe some suggestions. But to pass it and then ratify it, the optics don't look good. It looks like we're just ramming it through just for the sake of it. So I think we should go into the committee of the whole, and then at our next board meeting, it can be ratified. And it gives parents who didn't get an opportunity to say anything about the changes, it gives them another opportunity.
Trustee Piatowski?
Thank you, Madam Chair. With respect, this was supposed to be approved at the May 13th meeting. We ran out of time, and then it would have been ratified tonight. So we're actually on schedule by debating it and voting on it tonight. And it's going to be the same people in the room. I think people know, they've studied the proposed changes, and they presumably have a position on them. So I think that even if we moved into a committee of the whole, we would return to our board meeting tonight and ratify it. So it's just making us vote twice on the same thing on the same night. So I'm prepared to proceed with the board meeting as scheduled.
Okay. Trustee Ramsey?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I do agree with my trustee colleague, trustee Watson. The past history, the practice at this board has been that if we have items left over from a previous committee of the whole meeting, it was basically automatic that if the next discussion was at a board meeting, we would go into a committee of the whole, just automatically. So I'm quite surprised that this is being presented now. But that said, that has been the practice. But I realize how things are and how things are organized, and so yeah. So I'll just put that out there. That has been the practice. Now we see a change at the board table, and obviously we will vote, and I think we have an idea what the outcome will be. So thank you.
Okay,
And I'd like a
Okay.
recorded vote as well.
okay. Whenever you're ready.
Thank you, Chair Weston. Start with trustee Cody,
Yes.
trustee Esta,
Opposed?
trustee Johnson,
Opposed.
trustee Meisner,
Opposed.
trustee Piatkowski,
Opposed?
trustee Radlin,
Opposed.
trustee Ramsey,
Favor.
trustee Wasim,
Opposed.
trustee Watson,
In favor.
Chair Weston,
Opposed?
and trustee Woodcock.
Opposed?
Thank you, and that motion's defeated.
Okay. Moving on to we were at delegation procedures, section 15.3.
Point of information. You said 15.3, so we're at the very beginning.
15.3.1. Actually, didn't we already? Yeah, 15.3.2. I'm sorry, I didn't clarify that. I do have a line right there. That's where we left off.
I'd also like to make a motion that we suspend the rules.
Okay. Seconder? Trustee Ramsey? All in favor to suspend the rules? To speak to the motion more than twice? 7. Okay, and that opposed? And that motion is carried. Okay. We are on 15.3.2. Anyone like to speak to this? Okay. 15.4. Fif- 15.4. 15.4, yep.
Yes, Madam Chair. Just, more of a procedural question that can be addressed, I guess, at the end of this process that we're going through, and that is around just asking you direction as to if a motion would be put forward for anything that is passed tonight for it to go to council for legal review for to ensure alignment with the Charter of Rights. I'm just wondering, because this is a sticking point here with a lot of members of the public that I've certainly heard from. So I'm just asking for some clarification on that.
Um, if you would. Okay. So it's not currently scheduled to go to legal counsel again because legal counsel's already weighed in on the bylaws. If you would like to make a motion to do that, you can do so now, or you can do so at the end of this process.
I'll wait to the end of the process.
Okay.
If we're gonna run out of time, if you could please call on me and I'll put that.
Okay, and I'm making a note and I'm going to remind Ms. Rydell to remind me here. Okay, all right, so 15.4, trustee Watson?
Yes. And, you know, we have heard from delegates. When we look at this, we've also seen some activity. I'm sure we've all seen stuff on Twitter. When you look at this 15.4, this is problematic. When we say any request may be approved at the good faith discretion of the chair, I want everyone to think about not this current term. Think about the next term. Think about you might be a minority voice on the next board. I want you to look at this clearly. I want you to think, would you want this if you were a minority voice? Would this still be perfectly acceptable to you? Because there are many, many parents out there, there are many people, constituents, who are very, very concerned of what is happening in public education today. And so when we give that kind of power to a chair, we have to remember you're giving that power, you're abdicating your responsibility. What you're saying as a trustee is, you know what, I am okay with the chair making the decisions about my constituents, whether you're from Cambridge, Waterloo, Kitchener, wherever you're from, you're okay with the chair saying no to your constituent. Now, today, we're not so dependent upon the media because everyone's a reporter if you've got an iPhone. So if you want that kind of scrutiny yourself, you have to ask yourself a couple of questions. Would it be okay if I was a minority voice in the next term? Or would it be okay for my constituent to call me up and say, guess what? You know, I got rejected. Because parents, whatever we are trying to muzzle or censor at this board, we will send the parents out those two doors with their phone and their message will get out and it will be clear and it will be loud. So this is very problematic because we're putting a lot of stress on the chair and they will get the scrutiny. And because of course, they're making this, I'm not okay with it. I'm going to say it straight up. I'm not okay with the chair making decisions about who can speak at that podium. I'm not okay with it. I live in Canada. I believe in democracy. I'm not okay with it. So I think this, we should take out the part 15.4, delete it. And we should just move on from here and just look at this as a draconian bylaw. We don't need it. So I'm making a motion. We eliminate this piece here of 15.4, A, B, and C, and just take it out. We've come this far without it. We don't really need it. And so I'm making that motion that we take that out altogether, and I want a recorded vote.
You're making a motion to remove 15.4, A, B, and C? That's all? Okay,
So far.
all right, is there a seconder? Trustee Cody? Okay, speaking to that? Okay, recorded vote.
Thank you, Chair. Trustee Cody,
In favor.
Trustee Esta,
Opposed.
Trustee Johnson,
Opposed.
Trustee Meisner,
Opposed.
Trustee Piatkowski,
Opposed?
Trustee Radlin,
Opposed.
Oppose.
Trustee Ramsey,
Favor.
trustee Wasim,
Opposed.
trustee Watson,
In favor.
Chair Weston, sorry,
Opposed.
and trustee Woodcock.
Opposed.
Thank you. That motion's defeated.
Trustee Wasim?
Thank you through you, Chair. Not sure if this requires a motion, but we had some suggestions just for accessibility on 15.4.a to have a checklist on whatever form a potential delegate is going to submit their topic through. So the checklist would essentially show, have you spoken to the principal? Have you spoken to the child's teacher, et cetera, et cetera? I don't think this needs a motion, but if that can be put in
I think that's more of a process
process.
item, so that's kind of noted by staff.
Okay,
If should this pass, that would
Sounds
be
good.
noted by staff to have that
Okay.
checklist.
thank you.
Okay, moving on to 15.5. 15.6. 15.7. Okay. Okay. We speak to them together. Okay.
Fifteen point 4.2, again, this is very concerning. It gives the chair, again, the chair, power to turn down a motion or turn down a delegation based on how it's designed or framed. And that is a very broad umbrella term, and it could be used just for anything. Again, we are essentially giving the chair so much power. And let's face it, I mean, as a trustee, you expect that, not very often we have people show up to tell us, wow, what an amazing job you're all doing. Wow, this is amazing. This is great. They usually show up to tell us where we need to take action or where things have fallen through the cracks. They show up to criticize. So when we use language like designed or frame, it really is, and as the delegate pointed out tonight, it's like their delegation is being marked. It's like they're going back to school. So what happens is they submit their delegation, and then the chair gets out her red pen or his red pen, and they go through it and they say, change this, change this, change. That's censorship. It's censorship. We're not even saying, well, if there's we're not even giving a list. Well, if there's swearing or if there's, we're just saying, we just don't like the way it's designed. We just don't like the way it's framed. Like, we cannot do that to people who are actually doing us a favor. It's like we're removing the canary from the coal mine. We're just saying, you know what? We don't want to hear any negativity. We'll tell you what you can say. And all you're doing again is you're forcing parents or constituents or guardians to go somewhere else and put their information out there so that others can see it. You're not going to stop people from sharing their opinions. You're just not going to do it. You're only going to stop them from here. And at the most, what do we get? 60 or 70 people who tune in for a board meeting, but the internet is a big place. So I think what you're trying to accomplish for the short-term gain, we're going to lose long-term, because more people are going to be upset because they got an F on their delegation paper, and they're going to go out and share it on the internet. You're not going to stop people. So this right here, 15.4.2, I'd like to make a motion that we eliminate this from the bylaw, and I'd like a recorded vote.
whenever you're ready. Oh, is there a seconder? I didn't ask for a seconder. Yeah, okay, discussion.
Thank you. I would just like to understand a little bit better, like the kind of information that would inform this whole piece. Like maybe the framers can speak to it a little bit more.
Trustee Woodcock?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I had my hand up earlier to speak to it, but this is part of 15.4. 15.4 needs to be taken in totality. So obviously, it's referring to the various documents in 15.4.c, which talks about the responsibilities, duties, commitments under the Ed Act, the Ontario Human Rights Code, and the board's human rights policy. So if a delegation is writing their submission and and the submission is deemed to be contrary to the information in those documents, then the chair has the opportunity to have a discussion with the delegate to see if they can reword things, reframe it, so that it does fall under the jurisdiction of those documents. That's what it's referring to. It's not just sitting out there as isolated. That's what we're referring to.
Thank you for the clarification. Trustee Ramsey?
Thank you, Madam Chair. So I guess my follow-up would be, if that power that is being given to the chair, if someone could explain then, what the chair would be relying on to be informed. We're all elected as trustees equally. The chair is first amongst equals. And so what would be guiding the chair? Personal opinion? What kind of bias comes into play, possibly? Just need some more information.
Trustee Woodcock?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Having been chair before, the chair has access to legal counsel. The chair has access to all the staff that can advise them regarding the appropriateness of language. We have a human rights department. We have equity, we have all these people that the chair can access to get advice as to whether a delegation's written submission actually meets these, is contrary to the documents mentioned in 15.4c. So the chair has access to lots of resources to get advice.
Thank you. Trustee Ramsey?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I don't disagree with my colleague, having been chair also. I do understand, fully understand, the resources that are available. If someone wanted to act in, to use one other line from the top there, good faith, there are many options to do so. And I also recognize that if someone doesn't want to really act in good faith, and I'm not accusing anyone here being so inclined, but if someone didn't want to act in a way to allow citizens to come and address the board, I also do understand the kind of advice that can be given. And we got to understand it's legal advice. Is what you ask for, it's basically what you get until it's tested in court. I know in the past I've asked about information to be given to us from our human rights branch, for example. And I asked a question based on a complaint from a parent about some activities in one of our elementary schools. And I asked a simple question. Where in the Human Rights Code, for example, does it say that you are allowed to do this? And the response from a senior administrator was that, well, the code doesn't say we have to do it, but the ministry hasn't told us to stop. So that said, I guess it comes back to we're going to council, and I'm not privy to what anyone here that have gone to council. I'm not privy to what they've asked council, but I do know that the board, under the Education Act, has the authority to develop its own bylaws. So when we talk about submitting stuff to legal counsel, simple question, I guess, to legal counsel is, these are our bylaws that we're looking to pass. We have the numbers to pass it. Do you have any problem with that? No, as long as you have the numbers, that's it. That's what it comes down to, because technically, and I've been reliably told that if the board wanted to pass a bylaw to say no delegations whatsoever, the board does have the authority under the Education Act. Basically, at the end of the day, what it comes down to is how we want to deal with the members of our community who feels that they don't have a voice and they wants to come and talk to us. So we've designed rules now to basically, it would appear like to preempt some of the stuff that we don't want to hear. So basically, what someone else called Persian messenger syndrome setting in. And I want to peeve off the Persian community, but the Persian messenger syndrome, where you just tell the emperor what they want to hear, if not off with your head. That's basically what it's down to now. And so, anyway, I just wanted
Time to move
some
on,
clarification.
Trustee
I'm sorry, Madam Chair, sorry.
Trustee Ramsey, you're getting awfully close to getting called on a point of order here.
And what would that be, Madam Chair?
Saying about whatever this syndrome is you're talking about, and I'm not even going to repeat it. As trustee Woodcock has mentioned, 15.4.2 is not done in isolation. It is related to whether it is consistent with the Education Act, the Ontario Human Rights Codes, and the board's human rights policy. So all of that is under consideration when reviewing a delegation request. And if the denial is maintained, the delegation is still circulated to trustees, so trustees still see it. Okay, so I wanted to clarify that. I'm going to go to trustee Piatowski now. Come back to you.
I
Trustee
wanted to call the
Piatowski.
question on the amendment.
Okay. Okay, I'm going to allow that, and then I'm calling the question quickly.
Could someone, thank you, could someone explain then under, I guess, C and so forth, you articulated the Education Act, the Human Rights Code. Could someone explain then why one of the most important pieces of legislation was excluded, and that is the Charter of Rights and Freedom? Any explanation or anything on that? Anyone could elaborate?
Not seeing anything from the committee.
Very telling, thank you.
Okay, so trustee Piatowski has called the question. Is there a seconder? Trustee Radlin? Okay, all in favor of calling the question? Opposed? Okay, and the motion to call the question is carried. So this is a recorded vote to remove section 15.4.2.
Thank you, Chair Weston. Trustee Cody,
In favor.
trustee Esta.
Opposed.
Trustee Johnson,
Opposed.
trustee Meisner,
Opposed.
trustee Piatkowski,
Opposed?
trustee Radlin,
Opposed.
trustee Ramsey,
Favor.
trustee Wasim,
Opposed?
trustee Watson,
In favor.
Chair Weston,
Opposed.
trustee Woodcock.
Opposed.
That motion is defeated.
Okay, moving on, trustee Ramsey. On 15.4.2. Okay,
Not sure how this works, close here, with respect to, it's okay, I'll pass.
okay. All right, moving on. 15.43.
Thank you. Again, I'd like to speak to this. It says a delegation can only speak to the same topic or one deemed substantially the same once within a 12-month period. So what we've done here is we've essentially equated the public with trustees. Like in our bylaws, we can only bring the motion, you know, if it fails, we can bring it back after a year. The issue with this is we are denying the public due process, which means there's always a change of information, especially in education. The ministry might, have different information. There might be different information out in the community. So what we're essentially saying to them is, we only want to hear from you once, your 5 minutes, and don't come anymore, even if there's new information, which is completely wrong. We're denying them due process, and we are not doing a service to ourselves, because there is time where there are changes within the government, and it's different. Or for the public, maybe they have new information, something has changed at the school, we don't know. So I would like to amend this 15.4.3 to say, once within a 12-month period, unless the delegate has new information.
I'm just writing this down, 1 second. Okay. Is there a seconder for that? Trustee Cody? Okay, so we're speaking to the motion to amend 15.4.3 to say, instead of what's written here, once within a 12 months, a delegation can only speak to the same topic once within a 12-month period unless the delegate has new information. Is that
Yes.
correct? Thank you. Trustee Cody. Trustee Esther.
I would like to amend the amendment to add substantially before that.
Where are you adding substantially before new information?
Substantial new information.
That's a subjective.
Okay, is there a seconder for that amendment? So the amendment to the amendment, it will now read, if passed, a delegation can only speak to the same topic once within a 12-month period unless the delegate has substantial new information. So that's what is proposed. Is there a seconder for that? Oh, I'm sorry, Trustee Woodcock, thank you. Okay, we're speaking to that amendment. We're speaking to Trustee Watson.
I think, again, just like this, all of this, it's very subjective. And whether whatever your political leaning is, whatever your ideologies, whatever, I mean, we're not being fair to delegations. If it's new information, we don't need to say substantially new information. The chair can look at what is being provided, because they'll have to present a whole new presentation. So I think, again, we're just putting other words in there to make it even harder. And this is the problem with delegations. It's already, before this, it was already hard to walk through those doors and face 11 trustees and staff. It was already hard. We're making it harder. We're not doing anyone a favor. So again, when we create the prison, we live in it, okay?
Point of order,
When we
Madam
create
Chair,
bars,
point
There's a
of order.
Trustee
We
Woodcock.
are enclosing.
Point
this
of order,
There
Madam
is a
Chair.
Point of order.
Thank
Trustee
you.
Woodcock.
I object to the use of the word that is suggesting that we are creating a prison for through our bylaws. That's unacceptable.
I support that point of order. Trustee Watson.
Okay,
Move
I'll
it.
rephrase that. We're creating, we're creating a situation where delegations are constrained. We are going to be constrained. We're pulling out our biggest hammer for our smallest problem.
Trustee Estuesta.
If we just leave the limitation as new information that is also subjective, at least with substantial, they would have to differentiate why the information is now weighty enough. And with that, I call the question
Okay, is there a seconder to call the question?
on the amendment.
Thank you. Trustee Radlin? Okay. Trustee Estuesta called the question, and no, I'm sorry, I didn't see your hand, and that was not don't. We are calling the question on the amendment proposed by trustee Esta. So if passed, 15.4.3 will read, a delegation can only speak to the same topic once within a 12-month period unless the delegate has substantial new information. Okay, and that's I got a seconder, trustee Rodney. Okay. That's okay, all in favor of the amendment? Oh, no, all in favor of calling the question? Thank you, we're working together, good job. Okay, and opposed? Okay, and calling the question has been moved and seconded and passed. Carried. So now it's.
Now voting on the amendment.
So this is to vote on the amendment proposed by trustee Esta.
Madam Chair, could you please just read it for us?
Sure.
Have it read.
So if passed, with trustee Esta's amendment, it will read, a delegation can only speak to the same topic once within a 12-month period unless the delegate has substantial new information. Okay. Okay. Trustee Cody? We called the question.
Yeah, I know,
So
I
is
just got
this
a
just
procedural
process-
question.
Procedural?
Trustee Watson made a motion.
And then
right.
another
So
amendment.
shouldn't we vote on her motion to have the amendment?
No, Robert's rule says that if an amendment is made and then another amendment is made, we work backwards. So we have to vote on trustee Esta's amendment, and then if it fails, then we go back to trustee Watson's amendment. Okay? Okay. Okay, so,
Point
All
of
in favor?
clarification, are we still voting on,
we're
Trust-
voting on trustee Esta's amendment that I've read a couple times, and I was just clarifying with trustee Cody process, Robert's rules. Okay. All in favor of the amendment, passed by trustee, or put forward by trustee Esta. Okay, and opposed? And abstained? Okay, and that amendment is passed. Okay. We have to do it again. Okay. Okay. So now we are working through trustee Watson's amended amendment. But now it's with amended motion, thank you, but now it's with trustee Esta's amended wording. Correct? It's a little confusing, but we have to close the loop on the first amendment. Okay. So trustees, so the amendment that or the motion we are working through now is a delegation can only speak to the same topic once within a 12-month period unless the delegate has substantial new. Okay, okay, we have to vote again because of trustee Watson's first initial amendment. We're closing the loop on that. Okay,
there's still question.
okay, so yep, there's still discussion on it. Okay, trustee Ramsey.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So with the trustee Watson amendment now amended, I will not be supporting the amended motion. I do agree with trustee Watson, and I'll come at it from a different angle in terms of what she's asked to withdraw. And that is that I think that we are creating conditions that some people may view as prison-like conditions. And that is concerning.
Trustee Ramsey. Can we refrain from referring to
And
meetings as
Chair, I was just
prison-like?
saying that we're creating those conditions that some people could view. I don't think there's anything illegal in saying that. Some people could view. I think it's reasonable.
Point of order.
Trustee Wasim.
I think the important thing is to zoom out a little bit and realize that we are not the only board that is making these updates. It is not, this is a matter of,
Sorry, Trustee Wasim, that's not a point of order. You're
regardless,
calling a point of order on prison.
I don't like what's being said.
Okay. Okay.
I don't know how else to say it.
Okay.
Other boards are doing it.
Okay. We're moving on. Moving on. Do you
No, we
have
need to update.
Trustee Watson?
Thank you. Again, when we look at this, you know, and as I've mentioned, we want to make it easy on delegates so that there's a freedom of exchange of ideas or concerns. This will do nothing to encourage delegations. It is a deterrent to stop dissenting voices. It is a very, very constricting bylaw. And it appears like it's meant to be that it's going to stop people and hinder people from coming forward because it is a very intimidating bylaw. It's constricting. And so if this is passed, what we're basically saying to delegations is that, you know what, you've got to jump through all these hoops and you've got to do all of this. And then at the very end, even if you have information, it has to be substantial, which is subjective to the one person who would be the chair to make that decision. Again, I don't think the chair gets paid enough to put themselves in the center of controversy every single time. And so it's not good. So while I had intentions of still giving some flexibility, the flexibility was taken away. So I can't support my original because my intention has been changed in the amendment.
Okay. Trustee Esther, are you speaking to the amendment?
I had hoped that this would be a good exchange of multiple ways. I did appreciate Trustee Watson saying that if there was new information, and so substantive here, I thought was a great approach where we could classify that in a way that would remove some of the ambiguity that we would get from a chair on this. So I'm sad to hear that Trustee Watson will not be voting in favor of the amended amendment. And with that, I call the question.
Okay, is there a seconder to call the question? Trustee Radlin? All in favor of calling the question? And opposed? And abstain? Okay, the motion is carried. So we are voting on the amendment of 15.4.3. Do I have to read it again? No. All in favor? And opposed? Okay, and that motion is carried. Okay, moving through 15.5. 15.6. 15.7. 15.8.
The chair just hold a second, please. Yes, I would like to speak 15.8.
15.8, yes, okay.
So here's a situation where delegations will be scheduled to appear at the beginning of the board or committee of the whole, a maximum of 10. And that's the exchange for 8 will be scheduled. The problem is that we've shaved half an hour of our delegation time off what we originally had. So I would like to change 10 to 14, would give an extra 5 minutes for, you know, people leaving and that sort of thing, you know, coming up and leaving. But I think it is important that we give them the same amount of time and not shortchange the public that extra half hours. So I'd like to change it from 10 to 14.
Okay, is there a seconder? Trustee Cody? Anyone want to speak to that? Trustee Wasim?
I said this in our last meeting as well, say it again, that Hamilton Wentworth District School Board, they allow 6 delegations at their board meetings, 5 minutes per delegation. The Ottawa Carleton District School Board allows 20 minutes maximum for delegations, and delegates each get 4 minutes to speak, so that's 5 people, 5 delegates per meeting. What we have here in terms of our total time is quite substantive. So I will not be supporting this motion to increase it to 14 delegates. And with that, I would like to call the question.
Okay, is there a seconder to call the question? Trustee Esta. Okay, all in favor of calling the question? Okay, and opposed? Abstained? Okay. That's carried. So, there is a motion to change a maximum of 10 delegates to a maximum of 14 delegates, scheduled per meeting.
I'd like a recorded vote, please.
Okay.
Thank you, Chair Weston. Trustee Cody,
And we're voting on the,
Change.
uh,
15.8, changing 10 to 14.
I'm in favor.
Trustee Esta,
Opposed.
Trustee Johnson,
Opposed.
Trustee Meisner,
Opposed.
Trustee Piatkowski,
Opposed?
Trustee Redlin,
Opposed?
Trustee Ramsey,
Favor.
Trustee Wasim,
Opposed?
Trustee Watson,
In favor.
Chair Weston,
Opposed?
Trustee Woodcock.
Opposed?
Thank you, that's defeated.
15.9. That includes 15.9.2. 15.10 has been struck out. Or is proposed to. 1511. 1511. What's yes, Western?
I would like to update the language in 1511 to reflect the amended language in 11.16 that was passed at the last meeting
Just hold up.
for consistency. 11.16. I can read out that language if it is easier.
Yes, please do.
The prohibition on visual demonstration shall not be construed to prohibit expressions of identity related to characteristics protected under the OHRC.
Okay, and that was after the word opposing views, is that correct?
That is correct.
Okay, is there a seconder for that? Trustee Meisner? Any discussion? Okay, all in favor of amending 15.11 to be consistent with 11.16 as trustee Esta just read out? And opposed? Okay, and that is passed. Okay, 15.12. 15.13. 15.14. 15.15. 15.16. And 15.17. Okay, moving on to section 16. Let's just look at 16.1 altogether. 16.2. There's actually not much changes in this. Is there anything in section 16 that anybody would like to speak to? Section 16, anything in section 16? No? Okay. We'll start, anything in section 17? Anybody would like to speak to? Okay. Section 18, the title changed from committee of the whole to in-camera meetings, and there's a few, it looks like mostly housekeeping. Is there anything in section 18? Like, to speak to? Okay, section 19, statutory committees. Again, this is, looks like mostly housekeeping. Okay. Section 20. Again, mostly housekeeping. Oh, trustee Pytowski in section 20.
Yes, thank you. In section 20.1.2, there's reference to January to May and June to December. That reflects the old terms with the swearing in date now being in November. I would like to suggest an amendment that we change it from January to May and
December.
sorry, January to April and May to, actually, it should be December to April
Yeah.
and May to November. That would be the amendment.
Okay, so section 20.1.2, I think this is mostly housekeeping to align with the new
Yeah.
term dates of trustees. So it would change to one trustee appointed for the period of December to April, one trustee appointed for the period of May to November.
Yes, that's
Is there a
correct. Thank you.
seconder for that? Trustee Johnson? Anybody want to speak to this? I think this is mostly housekeeping. All in favor? And opposed? Abstained? Dokey. That is passed. Anything else in section 20? Okay, section 21. Oh, section 20 or 21?
Just a reminder about that motion.
Your motion?
Discussion, yeah.
Yep, I've got it right here and Ms. Rydell has a note too. Section 21, community committees. Again, I think housekeeping here. Section 22, ad hoc committees. Again, just housekeeping. Okay, section 23, trustee representation on staff committees. Okay, section 24, student trustees. Again, just housekeeping. And we're moving on to section 25, rules of order. Is there anything in section 25? Rules of order. Trustee Watson, section 25?
Yes,
Which one?
25.2.12.
2.12. So that's on page, oh, I don't know if it's the same page. Sorry, this is the one that starts, the motion to postpone indefinitely is used to eliminate. That's the one?
That's
Okay.
it.
Thank you.
Okay,
Ed?
so I would like to ask the question of, and I guess of Stephanie, what the interpretation of that is.
Ms. Rydell?
Through the chair, that's just additional information to assist trustees in understanding what a motion to postpone indefinitely does. Once someone has postponed it indefinitely, It can't be taken up at the same meeting, which is a statement you can see from our previous bylaws. The purpose of the additional statement, which was taken directly out of a book that provides information on Robert's rules, is just to provide additional information so trustees fully understand.
So the point that I'd like to make with this motion is not to, it's typically not used just to get rid of a motion that you don't like. Okay, I just want to throw that out there because I know we've added information about Robert's rules and been completely ignored. And even though we received an apology after, it still set the course in a different direction, which if we would have been listened to, could have been different. So I just want to make this clear that this is not to be used to say, well, I don't like that motion, so let's set it on the table indefinitely. This is to be used if someone moves a motion, and let's just say after amending it multiple times, it sort of loses its meaning, it loses its purpose, or we find out new information and we just say, you know what, this is just the easiest way to get rid of it. I just want to be clear that trustees know what this means.
Ms. Rydell?
Thank you, Chair Weston. And just to clarify, the purpose behind putting the additional information there was to make sure trustees are not using it incorrectly. That was the purpose behind it. That's all.
Great, thank you.
Anything else in section 25 rules of order? Okay, trustee Ramsey, you have a motion you would like to make?
Yes, Madam Chair. Take it that we're at the end of, that matters, and, so I just move that the draft bylaws be sent to council for legal review to ensure alignment of articles, with our Charter of Rights and Freedoms.
With that?
Point of clarification,
Just 1 second. Can you read it one more time or say your motion one more time, trustee Ramsey?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I move that the draft bylaws, be sent to council for legal review to ensure alignment of all articles or articles with our Charter of Rights and Freedoms.
Okay. Is there a seconder for that? Trustee Watson? Okay. Trustee Wasim, you had a question?
no longer relevant. Thanks.
Okay, would you like to speak to that, trustee Ramsey, or you've already spoken to it?
I've already spoken to it, Madam Chair, but just to reiterate, I think, if we look at our recent history, our past history, that is where we've run into some issues with respect to different interpretation of what is a charter right and what is human rights and what falls under the Education Act and what is supreme. So basically, I think if we were to send this to council, perhaps we could get some advice on areas that may or may not be problematic. I don't know, and I think that we would need to leave that up to council to identify if there's any. I understand that the bylaws were sent previously for review, and it's just from what I understand, unless someone that's on the committee or the committee can clarify, when it was sent to council, it was just simply along the lines of, here are our bylaws, are you good? In which, of course, the answer is going to be yes, because we do have the authority to pass a set of bylaws if we want to. Whether or not they align with the charter is another thing, and I don't believe that specific question was asked. If it was, then that information should be shared with us. If it wasn't, I think we should do our due diligence and send that to council for their review and to report back to the board prior to implementation of the of this bylaw, which I'm assuming is going to be approved.
Okay, so your motion is to send it to legal counsel to check, to make sure it's aligned with the Charter of Rights and Freedoms and to report back to trustees before July 1st, which is when they would become effective. Okay, Okay. And trustee Watson seconded it. Yep. Did you want to speak to this,
Yes.
trustee Watson?
Yes, thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Well, and I've said it, I don't believe these bylaws are constitutional. And instead of playing follow the leader with every other board, we used to be a progressive board. People used to look at us differently. We might not have agreed with everyone, but I believe the general public felt that they could come and they could share their opinion. They could share their suggestions or their recommendations. And now this flavor of this particular, the bylaw, I mean, we really are limiting the rights and freedoms of people. And we put the chair in a very precarious predicament, because now the chair gets to, you know, decide if you get to speak or not. And just because Hamilton or any other board is doing it, doesn't mean it's right. And it doesn't mean that we have to play leapfrog and go along with them because we can't think for ourselves. It's Waterloo Region, okay? This is our school board. And we're almost halfway through the term. If you don't think this is going to be an election issue in the next election, it will be. And not only will this, I mean, this is my platform. I will be sharing about these bylaws in the next election. I will do everything I can to reverse this in the next election. This will be one of my priorities. And so when we think of, yeah, are we infringing upon people's personal rights or expressions or freedom of opinion and thought and belief? I think we are. I think we are. And one of the things that I know from the public, there's things that, you know, the public will not tolerate, and they don't want to be censored because they believe that what they have to say is important. I believe what they have to say is important. So I believe it is just due diligence for us to say, let's, you know what, let's put this through the filter of, are we infringing upon people's right to share their opinion or share their beliefs? I think this is an important step that we can take to make sure we're not contravening the Charter of Rights and Freedoms.
Trustee Pytowski?
Thank you. I'm quite confident that our lawyer considered all factors when they were reviewing the bylaws prior to them being distributed to trustees. You saw their comments in purple throughout the document. They provided some constructive suggestions, which have now appeared in the document. And once the motion is voted on, they will be incorporating that legal advice. I think that my colleague is correct on one point. The chair doesn't get paid enough, but we're not able to fix that particular problem. But what we can fix is our bylaws, and I think that we've had the legal advice that we need to do so.
Okay, Trustee Woodcock?
Well, thank you, Madam Chair. Just a point of information. During the process that the ad hoc committee was meeting, and all the committee members knew, of which Trustee Watson was a member, knew that we did look at comparator boards. So it's a common practice when this board has reviewed bylaws before that we look at some of our colleagues across the province to see how they're maintaining their bylaws. As well, it's unfortunate that, speaking to the motion, I believe legal counsel gave it a good look, but unfortunately, trustee, nobody brought this up at the committee level. So I just want to be sure that information that we do look at comparator boards. That's common practice for any bylaw reviews that we've done in the past.
Thank you. Trustee Wasim?
Just commenting on some things that I heard earlier from one of my colleagues. It is important to be practical when there is an increased engagement with coming to delegate at our board meetings. Time is always a limited resource, and so we have to be mindful of this. This is not an infringement on people's freedom of expression. It is more so a concern of there is increased engagement, many different avenues through which people want to communicate with us. How do we make sure that that information is reaching us in a manner that is sustainable? So this is about sustainability long term. A decade ago, we did not have the same options of being able to tune in virtually. So this is just about making sure that we are being practical with limited time, again, a limited resource. And we have to be also mindful of the fact that our staff who sit behind us at these meetings are here with us for as long as these meetings go. They are here on their paid time. So we have to be mindful of this as well. Limited resources. So just something to think about.
Trustee Watson?
You. Okay, great.
Gallery?
So, you know, first of all, let's just, there's, you know, and I'm hearing things, I can't even believe that these reasons are being thrown out, why we need to make sure that, we have to expedite things, because like no other time, and especially in the last like couple years, we've hardly had any delegations come forward. A lot of meetings where we haven't had one delegation. And I think if you were to look at the numbers across the last 2 years, you'd probably estimate maybe we'll get, you know, on average, maybe 2 or 3, maybe 2 a meeting. But it's when the topics are very important to the public. And I understand that sometimes they're bringing a message that we really don't want to hear. But, you know, the question was asked, well, why didn't you bring it up the committee? Well, this is Trustee Ramsey's motion and he wasn't at the committee. That's why we bring it to the whole board so we can discuss it, so we can hear other ideas. I'm not afraid of other ideas. I have no fear of anyone coming here and saying something that I might disagree with. I've been doing this now for almost 24 years. I'm used to it. It's just an everyday occurrence. So you know what? Yeah, staff are here. I haven't heard staff complain. This is our job. We have been duly elected to come here and make decisions on behalf of the people who elect us. And the people who elect us are the ones that come through that door and they delegate. So even though there are multiple boards that are moving towards this direction for whatever reason, it doesn't make it right. And just because we piggyback and we just decide to do what they're doing, it doesn't make us right. So that's it.
Okay, there is a motion by Trustee Ramsey to send the bylaws to legal counsel to ensure they align with the Charter of Rights and to report back before the bylaws come into effect on July 1st, should the motion pass. So we are speaking to that motion. All in favor? Oh, I'm sorry, recorded vote. Ms. Rydell's on it.
Trustee Cody,
In favor.
trustee Esta,
Opposed?
trustee Johnson,
Opposed.
trustee Meisner,
Opposed?
trustee Piatkowski,
Opposed?
trustee Radlin,
Opposed?
trustee Ramsey,
In favor?
trustee Wasim,
Opposed.
trustee Watson,
In favor.
Chair Weston,
Opposed?
trustee Woodcock.
Opposed.
That motion's defeated.
Okay, we have a motion on folio 53 that the Waterloo Region District School Board approve the draft WRDSB bylaws as presented at the May 13th, 2024 Committee of the Whole and effective July 1st, 2024, and that the ad hoc bylaw review committee be disbanded upon adoption of the updated bylaws. That was moved by Trustee Radlin and seconded by Trustee Meisner.
And I'd like a recorded vote, please.
Okay. Right up.
Trustee Cody,
No.
trustee Esta,
In favor?
trustee Johnson,
In favor.
trustee Meisner,
In favor?
Trustee Piatkowski,
In favor?
trustee Radlin,
In favor?
trustee Ramsey,
Oppose?
trustee Wasim,
In favor?
trustee Watson,
Opposed.
chair Weston,
In favor?
trustee Woodcock.
In favor.
Thank you, and that motion is carried with a 2/3 majority.
Okay, I would like to thank the committee for their work. Thanks, Ms. Rydell, for all of her work on the bylaws, as well as helping me work through all the amendments this evening. It is appreciated. Thank you. Okay, we are moving on to board communications. Any comments on any of the board communications? Starting on folio 134. Trustee Piatkowski?
Yes, the letter from the Rainy River District School Board, to the Minister of Municipal Affairs and Housing and the Minister of Education. I would like us to send a letter of support for the points raised in that letter. It's about development charges.
Oh, sorry, my mic's off. Trustee Esta seconded. Okay, any discussion? All in favor? And opposed? And that motion is carried. Anything else on board communications? Okay, question period. Future agenda.
Yes.
Trustee Watson?
Thank you. So we've been hearing a lot, editorials, articles about the enrollment of the Catholic board going up. And there's lots of speculation. I know that, myself, trustee Ramsey, we've talked about parents who are dissatisfied in the system, who've told us we are moving to the Catholic board. Our voices aren't respected. We're not being heard. We're going to a different board. So I'd like to know, and because they're sort of hinting at it, and some people are saying, can you explain why our numbers really aren't going up and the Catholic board, numbers are going up? And so since we ourselves have heard parents say that they're leaving the public to go to the Catholic board, is there any correlation between their numbers going up and ours not really going up as high as what we thought they were going to be?
Director Chenica?
Through you, Chair. With regards to enrollment, again, I'd like to point out, as we've said multiple times, that our enrollment continues to go up year over year. Projections are an interesting thing. Just like we've said, we projected a certain amount, we went up, but the projections weren't as much as we projected. The article that the trustee is referring to is actually using projections. We don't know for sure that those projections will actually happen or not. So I think that for us to also, again, we've also commented on, first and foremost, we always want to hear from families. We do our best through our school principals who do a lot of really heavy lifting and hard work, and through staff at schools to really respond to families in the best ways that we could. I can say, as the director, on behalf of all the staff who are here, none of us would want anyone to leave because they feel that that they're not being supported. At the same time, we don't have any evidence of this. I've asked that the trustee on multiple occasions has said, I'm hearing from that they've heard from, could you please direct those folks to us so that we can support them? Till this date, in spite of asking for multiple years for that to happen, that has not happened on these types of issues. So where we know, we do our best, staff do our best to be able to try and follow up. At this point, we don't have any evidence that suggests that whatever is happening with the Catholic Board, and I cannot speak to what is happening at the Catholic Board, that it is directly related to anything happening here. I am grateful to the families of the 65,000 children that we serve, that they trust us. We recognize as a system that there is a lot of work for us to do. And we continue to do that. We have actually painstakingly over the last 3 years done a lot of work to increase our transparency and accountability to the community by providing multiple ways in which we share information and respond back to concerns. We have been engaged in multiple opportunities for learning so that we could deepen the ways that we are responsive. We have restructured the organization with the support of both staff who are engaged in doing work to connect to community through IEHR, as well as through corporate services through our community roundtables, where we have been meeting with multiple community stakeholders in an ongoing way to be able to better understand the issues as multiple communities and stakeholders have faced. And so as we do that, we continue to learn as a learning organization. I would suggest that we continue to be open and try to be responsive to the feedback that we get in order for us to be able to be the best supports and best supporters of student achievement and well-being.
Thank you. Just a
Follow-up?
follow-up, thank you. I have forwarded emails onto staff and I have worked with the superintendents. And as a result, if parents, their concerns didn't meet a certain, whatever they were looking for, they have left. And we have also received emails where parents have threatened, wasn't just to me, where they have threatened to move to the board. We live in Waterloo Region. You look around, you see all of the, growth that's happening, high immigration. And yet we're not realizing the numbers that we actually thought that we were going to have. So as for forwarding, no, I'm not going to forward it to the director because that's not the regular step. I forward it to the superintendent, and the superintendent is the one that deals with the parent and their concerns. And so what I'm saying is, if we at the school level, if we're not keeping track of why parents are pulling their children out and we're not having an exit interview, that's something that we should think about. So we know, why are you leaving? Where are you going to? Because we're hearing it and we're hearing it out in the community.
Okay, and if you are hearing that and pass it along to the superintendent as well as copy to the director, that would be helpful. Future agenda items? Okay, motion to adjourn. Moved by trustee Wasim, seconded by trustee Johnson. All in favor? And opposed? And that motion is carried. Meeting adjourned.